Since the Chiefs game, they've only allowed 40 total points. 40. 4 games, they've allowed 40 points since they allowed 44 to the Chiefs. Well, Chiefs are good. Chiefs are a real contender. Chiefs are the number 1 offense in the league. The Rams, on the other hand, stink. And the Chargers, no Keenan Allen, Mike Williams in that game. The Cards, no Kyler, no Ertz. Rondale Moore got hurt like on the 4th play. The Saints, well, you just watched them, Andy Dalton. The Dolphins are much closer to the team that scored 44 than any of the teams they faced the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's been all well and good to dominate, fourth quarter shutouts, all that. But the Dolphins are 6th in the league in scoring. This is a different animal.
Well, who's the best team they've beat up to this point for being a team that I think gets Super Bowl contention respect, gets respect as one of the best teams in the league? You look at the resume. If this was college football, their resume up to this point would be pretty questionable.
It is a college football resume, right? Like you would choose to play a lot of the teams. Seattle, is that the best team they've beaten?
I mean, do you think the Chargers are going to end up making the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, the version of the Chargers they played. But, yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers are good, yes.
Yeah, because they're quarterback. Seattle, it feels like Seattle got better post the 49ers win, but I still think the 49ers are going to beat them again. Like I don't think Seattle's a playoff team, so...
I looked today, Geno Smith has the number 1 completion percentage in the league when he's not pressured. He's 77%. Well, you don't get to not be pressured when you play the Niners.
I think the 7 seed comes down between the Giants or Seattle, and Seattle might just have the edge based on their schedule. You know, they play the Rams twice. You know, Seattle's like a 7-point favorite on the road this week against Bryce Perkins.
No.
So, yeah. So the 49ers, this would easily be their biggest win of the season. And part of having, like, I see some people throwing around historic defense. This defense is really good relative to the NFL, like the 2022 NFL. Historic NFL, they're missing players. I mean, they're just, I mean, you can't, they're not as good as they were earlier in the season based on Mosley is better than the corner they're rolling out and not having Eric Armstead, who is their second best defensive lineman. Their second best defensive lineman has not played. I can't even remember the last time he's
practiced this week, though.
He did. And hopefully he comes back. Like, that is a big deal for him to come back. But like what they've been doing this against is, like you said, Andy Dalton, Colt McCoy, which is what you had to do. You can only control who you're playing. But like you can't, like if you win this game, let's say 28-25, like part of being do you think most common fans view this as an all-time defense? Because the one thing 49er fans, I think, know, all their best teams, whether you're our age, whether you're older, they've all, from Walsh to Seifert to Harbaugh to now Kyle, have been defensive-led teams, right? And the Harbaugh defenses, I think, were better than this defense. League was a little bit different. And some of the Walsh, I mean, the 49ers defense, when we were kids in 94 that won the Super Bowl, had like 7 All-Pros, led by Deion fucking Sanders. I mean, I like Nick Bosa, and he's headed that way, but Deion Sanders is like top 5 defensive player of all time.
Yeah. No, I don't think people talk about this defense with the reverence that like an all-time great defense gets, but they do get talked about like the number 1 defense in the league, which in many
is important
categories they are.
Yeah, which
but
they deserve.
Part of those numbers have been built. You just have to acknowledge this. Part of those numbers have been built against bad offenses. Who are the best quarterbacks they've played? I mean, obviously Herbert, right? But is Tua the second best quarterback they've played this year?
I mean, Mahomes.
Oh, yeah, Mahomes.
And he fucking eviscerated him.
Is Tua the third best quarterback they've played this year? I got to do a quick review of the schedule here, but I think he might be.
Fields, Geno, Stafford, they kicked his ass, who was terrible this season.
Yeah, so... But whatever. I mean, like you said, you can only beat the teams you can beat. This game is a playoff team, right?
Yeah.
This is a playoff game. Now, on one hand, you go, well, you've won 4 in a row, so you've helped yourself out. You just stabilized.
For sure.
There aren't, no tiebreak. This isn't some tiebreaker thing. This game is going to come back to bite you in that way at a later date. You taking control of your division. You're better than Seattle, so you should win your division, all that stuff. But I do think some of the give them their flowers from the last game, and we did, and the Arizona game for sure, we did. Everybody did. Like, this is a week where if you go beat Miami, whether you play great defense or whether you just outscore them, either one, Now I think you really start talking about, okay, you're a Super Bowl contender. And I think it's going to be the same for Miami going on the road to play the Niners. Like we're going to be talking about Miami like a real Super Bowl contender if they win this game.
For sure. And listen, if you win this game and you're 8-4, I think you, me, every 49er fan would have signed up. I told you at the beginning of the season, 12 games in 8-4. Are you signing up for that?
Yeah.
Before you play a game?
100%.
Even though I think there were visions of potentially being like a 13-14 win team, you would have signed up for 8-4.
You would have thought that puts you at second place in the NFC West, maybe behind the Rams or something, but you would have taken it.
And who knows? Maybe they're 9-3. You're right there in the mix.
Knowing that 10 wins puts you in the playoffs in the NFC.
For sure. So 8-4, it doesn't matter. It's because I think we'd all agree, a little weird how they got here. It's been another little
story of Kyle Shanahan's life, John.
Yeah, a little bit of a roller coaster.
Tenure.
You're 8-4, and you just beat Miami, which, like we've just said, is a fantastic win. And you got Tom coming in, which, in a weird way, it feels like an easier game, though that game will definitely be hard. But you just, to me, it feels like under Kyle Shanahan now for 3 straight years, the quarterbacks they've had successes against are guys that can't move and are not athletic quarterbacks. Like Mahomes, Josh Allen, obviously Kyler when he's healthy. Guys that can get outside the pocket and throw the ball. That is not Kyler's deal. That is not Tua's deal. Wrong little quarterback. In fairness, Tua, people like him.
Likeable.
This is where Tua is very likable. I've seen some press con. He is a fun guy. He messes with the media a little bit, and they laugh. I enjoy Tua.
Really studies tape.
Tua? Yeah, tries. Just tries. But he's not an athletic guy. And he's a sitting duck if you have a good pass rush against an offensive line, which is who knows who's actually going to play. I think they're trying to act like guys are going to play that probably are not. So you should eat this guy alive. He is not running away. Even Andy Dalton, there were a couple times last week, he just took off. Andy Dalton's a good athlete. Again, I say this relative to NFL players, relative to everyone listening, me and you. Obviously, all these guys are really good athletes. Tua's a good athlete relative to society. But relative to quarterbacks in 2022, he's on the bottom end. And it's why, like, when you start looking at the playoffs, like, Dak's a problem. Jalen will be a problem. Cousins, not as much, right? Guys that just can't move. The Niners, when they've won games, have eviscerated those type guys. So Tua falls in. I think it's weird because small little quarterbacks, you go, I bet he's a move around, run around guy. That is not his deal at all. He is a pocket quarterback. Do you know who Kyle Shanahan compared him to? Matt Schaub. He reminds me a lot of Kyle in a weird way, took a shot. He was just thinking like all of us. He's like, they asked him, what have you thought of what Mike and Tua have done? He's like, coming in the year, I didn't quite know how it was going to look. Kind of like, most people didn't feel that good about Tua. He's like, I watched him in the first couple of preseason games. I could tell like he kind of got him going. And by the first couple of regular season games, clearly he likes watching his guys. And Kyle's talked about like he just watches other teams play. And maybe it's just as simple as he's playing this team later. He's just keeping an eye on Mike. But he's like, he reminds me of Matt Schaub. And the way he described it, actually, it sounds like a shot when you say that name. Kyle's not thinking about it like that, but just to the outside. Like,
yeah, Kyle's like, you guys don't understand. I hold Matt Schaub in high regard.
If just like he puts his foot in the ground, the ball's out. And, these guys get a Woody for that, right? 1, 2, 3, ball out. And very decisive with where you're going with the ball. And when you watch Tua play, it feels like, God, where's this ball going to go? And then the guy would just kind of comes under it. But it's all from within the pocket. All of it. Which I think bodes pretty well for the Niners. And hell, next week, it's Tom fucking Brady, but Tom goes nowhere. And now his Wirfs is out. So it's like, you have to eviscerate these quarterbacks in a weird way. Heineke is nowhere near Tom Brady or even Tua this year. But if you watch Heineke, like he kind of runs around, I can already see Heineke making some plays on the Niners, just like does a 360 in the pocket, runs around, hits Terry McLaurin. Like those are the things that the Niners, because they're very fundamentally sound. They're always in the right spots, but like they will miss you with the defensive linemen, right? Because they're coming up field. Well, they don't, with athletic guys, they do not miss guys that are stagnant. That's
Dalton
where it's
make
like,
guys miss.
Yeah, that is not Tua's thing.
Yeah,
that's what I think is a huge advantage this week of getting Tua. because he can't run. If I told you he was a big time athlete, it would be scary. Like even if he doesn't have a great arm, but he can run around. Like, oh, it's going to be a nut day. He is a pocket quarterback.
Yeah. I think the thing he's got going for him, though, and that still makes it challenging for the Niners is that Mike McDaniel, even though their thing has not necessarily been to the same degree that the Niners like to run the quick game, but they can do that, right? They can just get the ball into Tyreek's hands, end arounds, bubble screens, Jalen Waddle. Like, I would imagine Mike McDaniel's game plan this week is just to get the ball out of Tua's hands as quickly as possible. And he's got, his own little yak bros over there that can still create problems for you if you don't tackle.
Well, do they try some of the Chiefs stuff?
Absolutely, they do. And I think the Niners have been better against that type of stuff since the Chiefs game. But these guys have Isaiah Pacheco. They got their own Isaiah Pacheco, number 10. That's
the guy's pretty sweet, right?
Bro. Isaiah Pacheco.
He's good.
He fucking looks just like Tyreek. It's crazy.
Runs really hard.
Put 10 on him, and you for a second, if you were groggy or just woke up from a nap, you think you were watching like an old Chiefs game. So, I do think Mike McDaniel has a counter here to the Niners pass rush. And I do you think you're going to have to score points?
You're not winning this thing 13-7.
Yeah. You got to, I don't know if you got to score 31, but you have to actually score touchdowns on the red zone, which is a major problem for the 49ers.
Which their defense is not good. Like, one thing you would say about the Saints when they're relatively healthy is like Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator, putting together a defense should be pretty solid. Is their team going to be good? Are they going to – Mike McDaniel's their defense is not good. It's not good. So, you got to take advantage of that. Now, they do have a couple interesting pass rushers that, depending on how they rotate them, obviously 71 is not going to be a problem. But there was a play last week that kind of went viral where McGlinchey was blocking air. And it's just there are just consistent plays where the guy goes by him, but then he stays in his stance. Everyone else is on guys. Trent Stone and a guy, and McGlinchey's blocking like the ghost of Bourbon Street. It's like, I am telling you.
The who?
Because they're playing the Saints. Ghost.
No, that's really good. I like
that. Just nobody. And because he's like, I'm Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, fundamentally sound. Like, you're just not that good. And you're kind of a liability. I would rather have a liability at guard or center than just because at least you got bodies in there to help. He's just constantly kind of by himself.
Yeah. Pressure up the middle is a pretty
I know, thing. But at least you could just always take the center over there.
Yeah, so they got Bradley Chubb. They got Jalen Phillips.
Who actually looks pretty good, who they've kind of moved to stand-up linebacker. That's the UCLA Miami guy, right?
That's the UCLA Miami guy. And then they got Melvin Ingram.
Who's about 60 years old, but he's still going.
Just put him on Trent and take Trent out by having him, and then put, I don't know, Phillips and Chubb on the other side or something.
I'm glitchy, man. It's weird because in football, I guess if you're a sales guy and you have a sales meeting once a quarter, it's like, well, you didn't sell anything. So it's like back when everyone was always in the office, you'd get exposed. In football, every single week, you're watching the tape of yourself with other people on your own team. So it's pretty clear. It's, great players have bad games, but every single week, is Forrester just berating him? Is he, what are we doing? Or does he just know this guy has limitations that screaming at him? I just got to keep his confidence up.
For not throwing the ball deep.
Yeah, you just got to keep his confidence up to play the best of his ability, which is probably a C+.